Our first speaker is Kathryn Romanchuk. Kathryn recently left Emergency Management Fellow at NYU Langone Health, where she focused on developing and supporting enterprise-level emergency management activities and leads disability-focused research. Her presentation is Rethinking Resilience, What the Disability Community Can Teach Emergency Managers. Please help me welcome.
Very little is predictable about the practice of emergency management. In fact, a strong argument could be made that the only predictable aspect of our work is that the scenario, and what we know about it, changes. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Murphy's Law, which quips that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And more often than we would like, this can really feel like the anthem of disasters, because whether for the better or for the worse, change is a constant in our work as emergency managers. And if we are to be the champions of change that we strive to be, that work must be agile and it must be adaptive. My name is Kathryn Romanchuk, as you already heard, and I'm here to present a topic that is not only crucial, but often overlooked in the practice of emergency management, and that is the invaluable role that people with disabilities can play in making emergency management more adaptive and ultimately more effective. To illustrate this, we're going to take a quick tangent down the history of disability adaptation and innovation. And we'll start with something that several of you are probably starting to do right about now. Texting or emailing. We are at a professional conference after all, and I know we've traveled from all over the world to be here today, and I don't hold it against you, but we can thank the teletypewriter, which was developed to transfer telephone audio signals to text for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, for the foundation of this modern communication tool that we all use today. And where would emailing and texting be without the keyboard? Again, we can look and see that the keyboard was derived from the typewriter, which was originally developed to assist people who are blind or visually impaired in writing. Again, we get to thank the disability community for the foundations of our modern communication. I can continue with speech to text, which paved the way for voice recognition technology and how we interact with generative artificial intelligence today. Or with curb cuts, which assist people with disabilities, families with strollers, the elderly, and our local Amazon delivery personnel alike. But right about now, you're probably starting to ask yourself, what does this have to do with emergency management? Everything. And let me tell you why. So during emergency and disaster scenarios, the objectives of our profession remain the same, but little else does. And so as we look to our resources, aid becomes available or stockpiles become inaccessible. Or even looking at the scenario itself, it'll fluctuate between just another summer storm and training thunderstorms that threaten to inundate a community's ability to withstand incoming water. Even the public's perception of our work waxes and wanes on the whims of media and politicians. If we're to be successful, we must be prepared to 1, meet and overcome unforeseen circumstances, 2, adjust to evolving needs, and 3, learn from experience. We must adapt. So for number 1, responding to unforeseen circumstances. The disability community is constantly interacting with and overcoming instances of inaccessibility in a world, while navigating a world that more often than not wasn't designed to be accessible. And as such, people with disabilities were able to make adaptive sports and encourage built environment accommodations. They were also able to develop things like assistive technology and policy change. You can tell from the history that people with disabilities are adept at adaptation. And emergency managers who learn to leverage that knowledge and that skill set will enable effective preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery efforts that are able to adapt to compounding and dynamic incidents. For number 2, adjusting to evolving needs. The disability community isn't a monolith. This is as true for the individual's experience with disability as it is true for the community as a whole. And as such, people with disabilities are accustomed to becoming more inclusive and learning as time goes on. And emergency managers who can leverage this will be able to apply it. So as incidents unfold and we get more information, we realize that the needs of the communities and the organizations that we serve may change. And adaptability ensures that our work is able to adjust to meet those evolving requirements and make sure that we have more comprehensive contingency plans that will enable operational agility. And number 3, learning from experience. Adaptability requires a continuous commitment to improvement. And people with disabilities don't reinvent the wheel. They build a strong community of support, others with lived experience, and they learn from each other. They learn from experiences, and that enables them to be able to more effectively change outcomes for themselves and for people around them. And emergency managers who can learn to apply this to their work will also benefit from this, as it can change the way that we are interacting with our analysis of our response history, looking at and learning from mistakes, or even as we develop new strategies for incorporating real-time feedback or learning from post-incident assessments. And as we get that information, it benefits our field. It improves everything from the professionalization of our industry all the way through improved allocation of resources, making us more effective at our jobs. And adaptability is something that is going to enable us to be able to overcome any kind of disaster or emergency that we may encounter. So as my time with you here this morning concludes, I hope it's clear how devaluing or excluding people with disabilities from emergency management leaves everyone more vulnerable in our polycrisis world. And I hope that I can give you one final piece of advice before I leave you here today, and on how to include people with disabilities better in our work as emergency managers. And that is to consider people with disabilities as contributors and collaborators in the success of emergency management, rather than simply as consumers of emergency management services. Thank you.